everybody, how you doing? Johnny Silmon here from The Way, the Warrior Arts of Indonesia. So this is now episode 10. We're finally into double digits, and I've finally been able to get my good bro, Silat brother, on the podcast, episode 10. This is Kang Kai Lewis from Houston, Texas. Kang, how are you, brother?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me on, man. How you doing, Johnny?
Not too bad. Little bit tired. It's obviously things have changed here now. Winter's really settling in, so just getting used to kind of like the darker evenings and so on and so forth. How's it going over there? Houston still roasting hot as always? Or?
Well, yeah, we actually similar. We got a little cold front, so I'm wearing a little hoodie today. We got a little colder here, so enjoying it while we can,
Yeah. I see that. So, Kang, I've wanted to get you on, and we talk quite a bit offline.
Yes.
For those who don't know who Kang Kai Lewis is, he is, and just correct me if I'm wrong on this, okay? Because I know there's different kind of things that are going on with Panglipur in the States. Are you the U.S. representative for Bangalipur? It's Chechef's, Kang Cecep, who's your teacher.
Yes.
His version of Panglipur. Can you just expound on that so we're clear from the start what's what with that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Panglipur is pretty great because it's like multiple branches or families, even over in Indonesia, right? So there's like Panglipur HQ or Pusat. And then there's like different Panglipur families, like Panglipur Silawangi, the different branches where they do their own version of this whole curriculum, and they all have their way of doing it, like, cooking or a recipe,
Yes.
Some are more semi-artistic, you'll go to like Bandung, and they'll have these dance schools, and it's still Panglipur, it's great West Javanese, Sundanese martial arts, and you'll see like the head movements are really pronounced more, the flower hands are really encouraged more, and they're totally like, this artistic way of showing movements and ideas passed down through these cultures. Then there's more Beladiri focus, which is more self-defense, or like Jurusans, how to apply the movements we're doing. They typically move more in a combative way, like a pugilistic way. Your chin's gonna have to be connected.
Yeah.
You have to be ready. You can't be doing, big gong movements. So then Chechef is great because he's like a prodigy to me in the sense that he was able to, inherit these qualities and treasures and elevate and progress them in unique and specific ways. And one of the stuff he was able to incorporate was like Senam. We call it Senam conditioning or types of yoga where there's either like breathing exercises, isometric stuff, inversions. And if you go to, say, another Panglipur branch in Bandung, they won't have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's already like culture. It's already encouraged in this system and culture, which is great to me,
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so then in the USA, I teach more of the specific branch from Chechef, which includes all of these different elements that's unique, even though it's still, of course, from this area,
Yeah, fascinating. We'll go into that. As I understand it, your Silat journey was certainly, maybe not even Silat, but Bangalipur started in 2012. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Great story. I always like telling this story, Johnny, so thank you.
Yeah, this is important for context, so please go into that,
Yeah, so then I saw, before that, I was looking to do martial arts again, and I did karate and some kung fu, some capoeira, and I wanted to do something new. So me and my good training friend were looking on YouTube around this time. It's like mid-2000s. And then we saw Sadaricom releasing all these clips and videos from this DVD series they were doing. And, I always have my top 3 because I'm just a list guy. So of all these masters he showed, I had like these top 3. And, Chechef was on 1, Paksayofian was 2, and I love this idea of the Abazi stuff that I saw later with the YouTube stuff you uploaded back in the day. And I was like, whoa, that's like fascinating to me, So then Chechef came in town because Kang Nicholas Portillo, our Panglipur rep in Tennessee, had been in Indonesia around 2006, and he was already doing his training, and because of destiny or fate, they led him to Panglipur when he went to, I think, Padapokan Taman Mini, the big one in Jakarta. Yeah. And they're like,
That's right,
you
yeah.
should go to this guy. So he trained with like Paholadin, and Paholadin's like, you should go train with this prodigy. His name's Cecep Rahman. And Nick went, and boom, this instant connection happened. And so he brought him in 2012 for this USA tour. And, you know, I'm born in the year of the monkey, so I'm like really clever and crafty sometimes. So I was like, hey, I could go to Florida, I could go to California to do a workshop, take a picture, say I trained with this guy. Or I was like, man, I knew through my FMA teacher, Mike Blackgrave, that his cousin-in-law in Arizona, Kang Eric Kruk, was hosting Chechef just for a non-workshop, just for fun, right? So on a whim, we call him like, hey, Kang Eric, we know our teacher knows you, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, we want to come over and train with Chechef just privately for a week. Is that cool? And he's like, man, I don't know you guys. You guys sound cool. I know you do this stuff. Come over. So we went in Arizona and spent all this time training and talking to him and trying to understand like what's going on, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was the initial meeting that
Yes.
you'd met with him. And was that your first time in Indonesia?
No, he came to Arizona, USA for
Yeah.
his first USA tour. So
Okay.
2012, I just went to him.
But that was your first trip to Indonesia.
No. My first trip to Indonesia was in 2016 when I went to Garut.
Oh, got you. I understand. I
Yeah,
understand.
2012, Checha came to the United States.
Right,
Yeah.
got you. Yeah. So you know, obviously you'd seen this all the stuff on Saudara Calm. You saw how dynamic he was. What was that initial concept like in person? The training, you know, Silat would have been new to you. Links, obviously, you know, relational links with FMA and stuff, but quite different. And the way he presented it and taught it in his authentic and dynamic way. What was that like, and how did that relationship personally that you had with him? Because I have to make a point, it's different from teachers that say, oh, like, you know, Kang Cecep is my teacher. There's, like you said, you know, sometimes you go to a workshop or a seminar, and yeah, technically that's right. But what I've noticed, and you and I have spoken extensively offline, is that the relationship that you have with him is really quite a lot deeper, and you've spent a lot of time there. So how did that initial kind of vibe begin to, you know, manifest itself?
Yeah, great question, right? So as you know, it's a heritage, it's a heirloom. So like,
Yeah.
of course, you know, transactions, or we have a lot of, you know, Instagram people who pay to play, right? They just want the experience, or in fitness culture, like people who want to look healthy but don't want to do the things it requires to be healthy, or want to look fit but don't really want to do the work to be fit, right?
Yeah.
So then going and training with him in person was great because I had done FMA, the Filipino Martial Arts Eskrima, and I actually had some little exposure to Silat. For a couple of years I was doing this hybrid Dutch Indo Kuntao style that I think was from William Sanders' variant, and this guy was in...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Paul was in the park teaching, so we went to that class. And it had some good Chamandi stuff in it, and then it had like the Thor's, you know, Serok movement, and it had some Eddie Joffrey stuff mixed in, maybe with other stuff, I don't know, right? But I had some exposure to it, so when I met Chechep and we trained with him, it was in the garage, more chill, and when he turned it on, it was like from 0 to 70. And it was like, boop, and my brain, of course, like couldn't process it, you know, you're just like, absorbing it, but you're kind of like, what happened? Yeah. So then hands on, he's feeling through. So it's a lot of sticky hand drills or conditioning stuff where when you're doing, you're like, whoa, the feeling is the transmission of it versus just doing, as you know, like air boxing or air forms. Yeah. So that was really good. And then his Chamandi was, of course, really impressive because his way to soft move and then explode power and just like...
That's right.
Yeah. So that was all of those qualities I barely touched. It was like, whoa. I have never been exposed to it. And he always had a smile on his face, dude. He would turn on this, you know, killer instinct, martial intent, and then boom, be smiling, be like, oh, are you okay? Like, really good, you know?
Yeah. So that, I mean, you know, that would have left such an impression. He was, you know, obviously a few years ago, especially during the time of just all the filming, and just prior to the John Wick and stuff, he was at his peak of explosiveness and absolute crispness, you know. So you saw the full potency of that, and it was then 4 years. Obviously, you'd had training between that first meeting and the time that you then went to Indonesia in 2016. How had you been developing the material that you had gotten directly from him before that first trip? So what was kind of like the interfacing going on?
Oh yeah, so I had a good training partner that went down with me to Arizona, Mo, and then when we came back, of course, we trained with each other solo and with the videos Kang Cecep had provided,
Yes.
and the stuff we had recorded ourselves to keep it going. And then he got picked up, as you said, for the Raid 2. So I
Yes.
think they tried to get him to the Raid 1, but he was already doing this European tour for martial arts or something, so they couldn't get him. So for Raid 2, like, we definitely want you. So then, of course, I couldn't go to Indonesia. He was filming the movies, all that stuff. But the premiere in America was in Austin, Texas, which is like 3 hours away from Houston by the South by Southwest Festival. So once again, me and Mo, we drove up to Austin, and Church was like, hey, I'm here. Come stay in the hotel with me and come to the premiere with us. So it was a great story. We trained in the hotel for a couple of days. And it's like close quarters, you know, small bedroom. And it's like, boom, boom. And he's like, oh, this is close quarters training. And he exposed us to even more curriculum. So every time I met him, he just like pushed us, corrected us, and then gave us more, you know?
Yes.
In this cool upward progression of, you know, training and skill. And then I got to meet Iko Uwais. I got to meet, you know, Gareth Evans, the director. And I got to meet some other guys that were really cool. I was like, I didn't even think I was going to meet these guys, you know? So then that was the second time he came back. And he also did a USA tour. And I'm just not I love workshops and seminars, don't get me wrong. But sometimes I'm like, man, I can go to the, you know, Florida workshop, support it. But then I was like, oh, man, Chechef's in Texas. I'm going to definitely go to that, you know?
Yeah, that's a wonderful insight. And just before we touch on your experience of going to your first trip to Indonesia and what that was like, I want to just backtrack a little bit and talk about the Bangalipur system. So can you explain for people that don't know much about maybe Panglipur, the origins of it, how it was kind of like formulated according to your understanding, and how that evolved and spread out a little bit?
Yeah, I love the story of Panglipur because, you know, as you know, martial arts, we don't get a couple of historical inaccuracies in the way of good story. But it's got like this epic idea that Abba Ale, this, you know, Sundanese, West Javanese martial artist, has studied with all these masters and came up with like this multi-style system, a way of fighting and defending against other styles that was around the area. So it's like a paper, rock, scissors kind of style, loosely, but it's like an MMA before MMA was MMA, you know?
Sure.
And then I love that story, and that back in the day, he didn't have a name for his style. It was just his way of fighting and defending, and it had Chimandi in it, Chekalong, Desera was in it, it had like all these, you know, cool, classic, old styles. And then supposedly the Sultan or this king was sick, and all these soothsayers, medical people, healers, you know, musicians came to like alleviate the Sultan's sickness or issue he was going through, and none of it worked. So then they invite Abba Ale to come, and, you know, West Javanese Chimandi villages, they do some of the ibing with the music and gendang, which is great, which is like capoeira with this, you know, live kind of visceral feeling. And when Abba Ale performed at the end of the thing, when he's done his session, oh, the guy feels better. And he's like, oh, your style, what's the name of your style? I was like, I don't have a name for my style. Oh, your style should be called Panglipur. And supposedly it means like the comforter or the one who comforts. Yeah, because he's like, you comforted me, I feel better. So like, epic story. And he was born in 1909 and died in 1980. And he was able to, like, you know, produce this school based off his philosophies and his methods that was passed down through generations. And then the next big figure, I think it's like his granddaughter or his fourth daughter, Ibu Eni. She became the grandmaster of Panglipur. And she was also, like, you know, back then it's pretty progressive, I would say, to elect like a female to be the head of this giant organization. But she fought in the Revolutionary War. She was really devout Muslim. She, practiced, kept the art alive, and then she helped take Panglipur as an organization to the next level. Like it really expanded after that. Yeah. And of course, the 90s and 2000, then we have all these multiple branches of Panglipur, and then Panglipur Pusat tries to unify them in a specific umbrella of schools where we're all one family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they the Bangalipur Pusat meaning like central.
Yeah.
So the central kind of HQ there is in Garut, isn't it, in West Java?
I think it's in Bandung.
Oh, it's in Bandung. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the central branch, what's the structure in terms of, is there one like head and kind of like Guru Besar, and under that, what's the kind of hierarchical structure currently? Because obviously when Ibu Eni was there, she was the kind of the leader of it. But I think that's changed now, is that right? So there's not one particular sort of figurehead?
Yeah, I believe recently, it's like all recent events, they elected 4 Guru Besars of Panglipur.
Right.
Yeah. And it was a new movement, and of course, I think one of them is a descendant of Ibu Eni, Aba Ale, and then the other 3 are like the top 3, Panglipur guys in that area progressing it, who are all Panglipur HQ, but then they have their own expression of what they do and teach,
Which is really great in terms of you talking about the slight branches and different variations, because then each teacher brings their own kind of experience and characteristic to it. So as it goes out a little bit, I mean, for example, I would, sort of tell me if I'm wrong, but I would think that perhaps Chechep students would exhibit much more of kind of like an explosive kind of way of moving, whereas maybe other teachers within it just teach a different way, and therefore the signatures might look different, or the emphasis perhaps maybe more on Ibing or something just might be a little bit different. Is that your kind of understanding of it? Or
yeah, that's spot on, Johnny. And that's where like there's tradition and evolution, and sometimes those paths, depending on the system, kind of go away from each other. But there's tradition and evolution that work together sometimes. Like, I think before COVID, definitely Chechep was going to Paksayofian, who's Harimau Singgalan in West Sumatra, and kind of like...
we will discuss that. We will discuss that as well.
Exactly. And something like the stories I heard of how Hermes Suwanda would also go to Sumatra to integrate Harimau into this West Javanese blend. And in my research, I found out there's this classic story of like this Sumatran guy going to West Java, training them, and like a Chamandi guy going to West Sumatra. And there's always been this interface, and there's like this story
so much cross-pollination.
Yeah, the hero's journey, right? So Chechep, his version also had elements of Harimau Singgalan that if you go to the other schools of Panglipur, do not have at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
So that's cool stuff.
Yeah. So that's right. So it's really quite progressive. So when you went to Indonesia in 2016, now I remember my first trip was 2002, and I'd travelled all over the world and so forth like that. But for me at that time, it was quite not a culture shock in a bad way, but it was so different to kind of like Western life for me, especially out in the kampungs, the villages. Tell us what that was like for you. I really want people to get a grasp. And I say this just to hold the point. I've heard a lot of times people talk about saying, I don't need to go to Indonesia to learn Silat. Do you know what? You don't. You really don't. And I get and I respect that. A lot of people, might get teachers, come over to the States or the UK or Europe, wherever, and that's a wonderful thing. But personally speaking, I think going to kind of like the country of origin where it's from gives not only just a level of context, sight, sound, smells, tastes, but also where you're interfacing with other students within that school, and their kind of level is going to be rubbing off as well. So that's just my thought process on it. So tell us all about that experience, Kai.
Yeah, man, it's lovely. The Earth has memory, right? So every land all over the world has their own energy, and people have lived on this land for hundreds, thousands of years. So I'm a vibe person. Like if I vibe, it's on positive, and I can, if it's negative, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna vibe too much with you for too long, So when I go there, it's all about vibing with the people and the land, like you're saying, the mountains, the rivers. Also, like Thailand, the traffic in Jakarta is insane. If you never experienced that type of traffic, you're like, oh, you have to go somewhere in 30 minutes? Yeah, well, sit down for 3 hours. We're gonna take it easy, And I was born, in the Caribbean, so I grew up in Puerto Rico. So I'm used to some of the, red lights are suggestions, not enforced rules all the time. But if you've never had that, it's like anxiety inducing for a lot of people. They have to close their eyes. They get really anxious. Going up to Garut's good because it turns from this freeway into a small road, into a country road. And the mountains sometimes, you're like, whoa, how's he navigating this small mountain path? And, it's a great feeling. And the city to the country is so dramatic because Jakarta is one of the largest cities in the world and it's populated. And then you go up the country to this nice little mountain village where it's cooler, but the closest convenience store, if you're not ready and you don't prepare, is like, down that way, So I like that aspect of it. It was able to sober you up and pulls you away from modernity because I'm not staying in Jakarta. I'm going up to the country. The cold showers are really good. If you're not used to that, you should prepare yourself. Cold showers are good. And not everywhere has that, obviously, and now a lot of places have been modernized. The toilets, as you know, for a lot of Westerners, like, whoa, I have to squat to use the toilet. Good luck with that one. Or the bucket, the bucket or the water hose. If you're not used to that, that's a good one. My stomach's pretty strong, so I can eat relatively food without getting, the diarrhea stuff. But some people, it's like, bring your pills and all that stuff and medicine to make sure you're good. The biggest culture shock also, of course, is, it's really slower pace. And even though you're in the mountains, they're island people to me. So they're like, they're chilling, dude. Nothing's going to be done really quickly. And if it's 10 a.m., that means a suggestion like, oh, 10:30, 10:15, maybe, 11 o'clock. So I like the island vibe of it. And the people are pretty down to earth, pretty grounded. And of course, no one should ever walk through any dark alleys in the world and not suspect, dark alley things to happen. But it's a really nice place. And Chechef's family was great. They welcomed us. They cooked, cleaned for us. They stepped it up in a way that was like family, dude. The grandma makes the uniforms and the clothing, anything you needed. They would be right there to support you. So it's really a familial system, and it's really super inviting and low key. And I don't speak Indonesian at all, so a lot of things just vibes and feelings. And some people they're looking you in the eye I understand you. Yes, let's get it going. So I really appreciate that quality of them. Chechep's great. Typically back in the day, he'd be like, oh, you tried to give him money before. He's like, no, don't give me anything. He's like, no, I don't do this for money. He's like, after you leave, let me know because you might not get what you think you want. He's like, I'm not selling you anything. These aren't expectations or something you hang on the wall like a certification or you go through a program and they give you your belts. It's like, it's a school, a college of martial arts, but it's also an heirloom. So it's cool. I really appreciate that,
And to be taken on as a student to that level, not everybody gets that kind of level of opening or detail. So it must have been a great honor to have that because that's a busy man, busy life, being pulled, busy with the film stuff. So to have that level of insight and kind of being pulled into the family in that way is a massive honor. It's a massive honor.
Yeah, man, I got so fortunate and blessed, through the universe to hook it up. Because I was a teacher for a while, so I would have summers off. So I would go to Indonesia and Thailand during my summers, and he's like, yes, we're here. The first time was great. If you don't ask questions, sometimes you don't get answers. And if you don't research enough or prepare, well, you're by yourself. So when the first time I went, it was Ramadan. Yay! So we went for the whole Ramadan, summer plus, and we stayed to the end of Ramadan. So yay, that training was really even more culturally shocked. And, doing the fasting, because if I'm in your house, I respect your rules. I'm not going to make up a big storm, I'll eat your food. And I went along with it. He didn't force us to do it. No one tried to coerce us. It was like, you can do this or this. I'm like, I will fast too. And I loosely study some Sufi Islamic stuff, bro. And I've fasted before. And, it wasn't anything foreign to me or like, oh my God, I need my, my power bar or my smoothie in the mornings.
That's funny. You have to kind of empty your cup when you're there because it is very, it's a different culture. And I think for a lot of people, maybe that might like the idea of going there. It's an unknown quantity, but if you're flexible and you just flow with that, I believe people will have the greatest of times. But like you said, if you're an individual who's rigid and needs your power bars and stuff, you're going to have a hard time in somewhere like that. You're going to have a hard time somewhere like that. So you're currently teaching, amongst other things. We'll touch on some of the other things you're teaching as well.
Yeah.
But you're currently teaching at the moment that curriculum. You're teaching Kang Cecep's curriculum. How's that? How have you set that out, or what's the format that you're teaching with current students if new people come in?
Yeah, so as you know, the different terminology, Pergoan, and then Padepokan, and then Aliran, right? And it all means different things like organization, college, specific styles, and then school of, the method of maybe. Yeah. So Padepokan Kasundan is Kang Cecep's school in Garut.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting, yeah.
And it's where he teaches both his Kasundan arts of Panglipur Gali martial arts system and his stunt, Ganda, choreography stuff that he learned and put together. So he has a little stunt school for the locals and anyone really internationally want to go and learn. And he has an active community with the younger kids, the younger adults, all trained in either both or separate. Some people do it, as you know, just want to do the artistic or the choreography stuff. Some people want to do more of the, self-defense, conditioning stuff. So Padepokan Kasundan is like a really great way of preserving culture, but showing the progression of it in a different way. And then the overall Pergoan is, of course, Panglipur Pusat HQ. So I teach that variant, which has the yoga in it, or Senam, we call it, body conditioning. I always start classes with joint opening, condensing the body, moving, getting up and down. It looks like mobility drills for some people.
Yeah.
But it's like taken from Pamachan, Pamonyet or monkey and tiger systems. Yeah. And I just break it down to smallest components. Like, am I going to make you do this whole druze where you have to go to the floor and jump up and down? No. I'm going to make you squat and do up and down movement until you get relatively, reason. So I always start 15, 20 minutes. And it weeds out also people who aren't interested in that stuff. And they just want to either do fighting, go do Muay Thai, go do boxing. There's avenues for that. There's Sports Silat. And there's some people who just want to collect things or techniques, but they don't want to condition. So it's like, you should go somewhere else and find something else to do because there's people who will do that for you, And then I try to teach the way I was taught, and I had the same experience, where I would teach per traditional way, but now it depends who I shows up to class, I modify it, dude. So depending on who shows up, I don't go pure rigid. I blend it. I work into also the Paksayofian stuff material into it that Chechef added, gives a little different flair. And I really like Select 2.0. And it's got, to me, a lot of, holding postures, kind of stretching your body in simple ways that will prepare your body to do ballistic fast Silat. And to your question earlier, Chechef School already before was super explosive, dynamic, right? And then when you look at some of the Select 2.0 styles, Harmal Singalon, they're doing aerials, flips, super explosive, plyometric, power generation stuff.
100%.
Yeah, so when those two ideas and method mix, Chechef was just like a tornado,
Absolutely. I mean, I'd seen you'd shared with me a couple of private videos of some of like the power exercises.
Yeah, exactly.
Which were really kind of like amazing to see that. And we were discussing some of the elements that look like elements of like sabandaran sort of
Yes.
movements and that kind of like contraction and explosion there, which is almost like a signature that he has for his line, and I see that with you as well, which is not everybody has that, so that's an amazing thing. But let's just pivot a little bit, because you've brought up the subject of Harimau Singalang.
Oh yeah.
And that's Paksayofian Nadar, yeah, with his an amazing teacher. He's been around, you know, he's traveled internationally. What was your interaction in terms of training with Paksayofian? And I know obviously you'd heard about him, probably, would I be right, through the Saudara Kaum videos
Exactly.
as well?
Totally.
How was your first interaction? How did all that come about?
Yeah, so I was impressed upon by the Saudara Kaum DVDs, and through my own perception, I was like, whoa, that's something that's, I just resonate. I'm a vibe person. So meeting him and his two sons, you know, Bayu and Denny, they're also been doing it since they were kids. So we got exposure of Paksayofian, this grandmaster, as you know, this living legend of West Sumatra styles, and his two sons who are different ages, but relatively younger and closer to my age. Yeah. And they came, I think, like a week or two. So I like going for.
Oh, they came to the States, yeah?
They haven't come to the States yet. But in 2016, you know, Chechef was barely blowing up with movies. So then in 2018, he did the first Kasundan International Pencak Silat camp.
Right. Yeah.
And since I was still a teacher, I have summers off. I went for the whole summer. So I went before the camp, and I stayed after the camp. And then we got lucky because Paksayofian came a week or 2 weeks before camp, dude, to train us all before the official Silat camp, where all, you know, the martial tourists come, all the people from different around the world, and they have their cameras and pictures. I was taking pictures, right? Don't get me wrong. Yeah. And Paksayofian trained us. I was like, whoa, this dude's like a Tai Chi master. He would jump, flip, explode, and they go empty and just go, you know, isi kosong, and they're not saying those terms, but we just disappear on you. I was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? And by then, I had done FMA more Silat, and I got into these Chinese internal martial arts program where they teach you like Xingyi, Baguan, Tai Chi, these three internal Chinese martial arts, right? And we do a bunch of sensitivity drills, and you do breathing, Qigong exercises, meditation, all great stuff. So it did help me training my sensitivity, or my rasa, to this next level, on one level.
Yeah.
So then when I went in 2018, my perception of feeling, energy, sensitivity, and movement was totally different. And Paksayofian was like, whoa, that's high level skill. And whoever can touch you and connect through your mass and like move you down to the floor or lock you up, which is like a high level internal skill, you know? And it happened a couple like 10, 15 years ago in the yoga community or bodywork. Fascia became this buzzword, right? And then eventually the internal guys, you know, Chinese people, like, oh, the fascia, that's what we're doing. And there's truth to it within the stuff they're trying to sell you. But like Paksayofian would just touch you and you feel like, oh, he's got your fascia bodysuit and you're not going anywhere. You know? And it's like a mama cat pulling the baby cat from the scruff, and the cat just goes like limp. You're like, it doesn't fight. Yeah. You know?
So you were going through like obviously the introduction to the system of Harimau Singalang.
Yeah.
Do you still train that now as well? Is it integrated with the other practices that you do?
Yeah, so it was integrated by Kang Cecep into his Panglipur Gali system, and stuff he was progressing end to end. So that helped me continue it, and of course I took video and, you know, DVDs, and I'll still contact, you know, Paksayofian, his sons, and we have a conversation and we share ideas and movements. So I was able to get that separate material and train on my own there. But I'm like, I like digesting things, so I waited 4 years before I started teaching Panglipur, you know?
Sure.
Like, I really wanted to get it. So with the Paksayofian stuff, even with the stuff Chechef did, I really took my time to appreciate it, not to confuse my nervous system or, you know, my ego or my personality, right? Because they're completely two different styles that are complementary. And they work well together, but they're not the same thing. So
they're different. Different signatures, different flavors. It's like two different dances that have a different beat and a different rhythm. You know, they're both dances, but they're quite different. And if you mix them initially, then to your point, it can get very confused. So sometimes just having a level of deeper understanding and assimilation of one. Once that's in the neurology of the body, it's a little bit easier then to go and grasp something else, because a lot of people don't like realize that a lot of the West Sumatra, which is the Minangkabau, it has a very big influence, believe it or not, and this might kind of, get some people a bit annoyed. It has a big influence with a lot of the older Sundanese arts.
Yes, and that's that story I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Mama Sabandar, yeah, was from Minang.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then the story is like, okay, where was this developed in Sunderland, or was the knowledge already kind of West Minangkabau knowledge? Because I'd learned a separate form of the kind of what we would know as Jurus Lima Cianjuran, which was Sabandar, from West Sumatra, and they had never travelled to Java Island, and yet I had spoke to Guru Ed about it, and he said, no, this is really old knowledge, like quite a few hundred years. So I said, this stuff already exists. He said, yeah, we've got loads of that stuff there that's filtered through. So it's interesting, the evolution of it, to the point that we spoke about earlier, cross-pollination, them coming there, these coming backwards. It's a real fascinating subject. Which brings me to ask, just pivoting back to Banglipur again.
Yep.
What were the styles, or the aliran, the original streams, if you like, that made up Banglipur? And have you delved sort of individually into any of those, specifically looked at those a little bit more? Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, like, it's a multi-style system, and they show you at first their inheritance of it. And then they progress you through weapons, and then they progress you to the individual styles like Chamandi, Chekalong, Sera, Kari Madi is a style. Shabandar is a style also, but it's like, within embedded into stuff we do.
Yes.
And then Chechef would encourage us always to go to the village of Chamandi, train with those guys. Go to the village of the Chekalong teachers and go train with them. Go to West Sumatra, go train with those guys.
Yeah.
He would ultimately want you to go to the source. So outside of the camp was great because we got exposed to Abaziz, this, Chekalong master, as you know, who's really high level.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful,
we're exposed to Asad, Guruan, Gending, we're Paksayofian, obviously, and, Kang Rafi Jam was really, great exposure to.
Adong Rice, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
great, fascinating stuff. I love all of it.
Yeah.
But individually, it's only mainly with Chechef because I did some Trimandi with him specifically, more of the traditional stuff, some of the Serak stuff, and within Chamandi, as you know, there's the Pamachan Tiger system and the Pamonya within Chamandi. Right. So mainly my exposure has been directly with Chechef and the camp. Outside of that, I haven't gone to any of the villages yet directly to learn.
Yeah, but they're there to explore. They're not going anywhere. As we know, we've discussed ourselves. It's a whole lifetime of learning. And even if you think, well, I'm actually getting somewhere, you scratch the surface and you think, God, you know what? The journey's just beginning again. I always feel that every time I travel there.
Forever humbled.
But yeah. But you mentioned FMA, and you mentioned actually a teacher who's based out of Texas is Big Mike Blackgrave.
Oh yeah.
Big Mike his Mike is get some, come and get some.
Yeah, and he's low key sometimes, right, or he's really loud depending on what day you get him. But he had an extensive background in Silat himself.
Yeah.
So it was cool. He had elements of Kalis Illustrationmo from this Yuli Romo variant, which is like one of the four pillars of Tatang. And he added his flavor of the Silat into it that he learned, the other martial arts he was also experiencing. So he gave me a good outlook, too, of this multi-style way of approaching Southeast Asian martial arts. He knew Eric Krug, who's the Bardingdang Shakti instructor in Arizona. So
just for people to know, Eric is Kang Cecep's brother-in-law. Am I correct?
I think cousin-in-law.
Oh, I see. So, okay, Kang Cecep's cousin is married to Eric. That's right, yeah, yeah. Because I remember he was in the early days. I'd seen them sort of together in pictures and stuff in Indonesia, so I knew there was quite a close relationship that they'd had, and clearly it's through
Yeah,
through
and then a
like
great side story. The
like
first FMA style or Filipino martial arts was this eskrima style called Bahala. And I had my good teacher Guru Joe and Guru Jason back in the day,
Okay.
and I started learning with them. And it was a World War II martial art that was pioneered by Grandmaster Leo Huron, and then he had moved, of course, to Stockton, California. And during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there's this Filipino martial arts renaissance happening with the JKD Inosano guys and the pure Filipino martial art guys and Kempo too. Ed Parker, all kinds of synthesizing happening. So then I did that for a while. I was fortunate enough to meet Grandmaster Tony Samara. And Tony Samara was also the current Grandmaster at that time of Bahala, and he had studied in depthly with Herman Suwanda. And I don't know what level, but he was like one of the Jagabaya guys. He's one of the guys like Doc Doherty in Texas that really
Yeah.
studied with Herman. So I got to meet him, and he was really, dude, phenomenal, also precise. And he would go all the
Yeah.
way to the floor, and I would start not, doing the same thing, but I would go similar. And he instantly knew, he's like, oh, because I was doing that, remember that, Dutch, Indonesian, Chinese variant martial art. He's like, oh, that's Silat. He's like, Kai, that's Silat. He's like, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you got me. Because the other Bahala guys are in a stand-up kind of forward stance, deep lunge. But he's going all the way to the floor. I'm like, I can go to the floor too like that. And he called me out. I was like, yes, I study Silat currently with Bahala Na. And he was totally supportive for it. And he's like, hey, I study with Herman Suwanda, and it's wonderful. It made my everything great. And, to do some of the stances, it's like doing yoga or weight training. You have to have legs, bro, or it's going to be hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought they were sister arts, like how, Bagua, Tai Chi, and Shin are sister arts in the Chinese internal. To me, Eskrima and Silat are kind of like sister arts. They're just,
very much so.
Yeah, Indonesian, Malay, Filipino, cross-cultural.
Definitely, and geographically, they're not that far apart in terms of like all Southeast Asia. The
Yeah, and
differences.
the FMA crowd has a little bit more, whether they like it or not, the European influencing with the fencing and the Spaniards. But, when you see the southern Philippines, the Moromoros, they fight more that looks like Silat. Like, you're like, wait a minute,
It's fascinating stuff. It's fascinating stuff. The what was I going to say? So you obviously you're training. There's the physicality of it, but again, you and I have spoken extensively about this side of it. The how could I put it? The metaphysical side of it, or the side that is internal for you in terms of your practices. Can you share a little bit about what that means to you, how you cultivate that, how you integrate that into your life, and the benefits that you get from it, within maybe your Silat practice, or even some of the other associated practices like, your extensive yoga, Tai Chi. But maybe start with the Silat, and through your training, what have you felt or developed? Because there is another side of it that's not really spoken about. A lot of people just see the techniques, the physical techniques, but there's a whole nother side to Silat, and it's not anything hocus pocus or anything like that.
Yeah, no
There is
yellow
a
bamboo.
physics to it. There are a physics to it. Share a little bit about that, if you will, please. What you'd like to.
Yeah, so the metaphysical also encourages, like the philosophy and adab, or like the respect component. And it's like, it should be a sincere thing. It shouldn't be a platitude, right? It's like a village or community where communication is really encouraged, and, talking to people, there's always the mutual respect aspect, whether their religion, their color, their gender, or whatever is different than yours. We always go from the heart, and so it's a heart-centric system. Even though we have mental stuff, it's not a mental-driven system, right? As you know, some of the big gurus or the Instagram gurus are all about collecting techniques or collecting forms, but that's all mental, right? That's like different than what they're trying to Chechef and some of these high-level teachers are trying to transmit to us through feeling. That's
Yeah.
not frontal lobes. So there's the conditioning stuff we talked about. I like to break things down to threes. Like I said, I have a 3 list, right? One of them is there's conditioning methods, which is how to move the body, do breathing, how to relax. So there's the Shabandar exercises we talked about, or the Tinmangan, where it looks like Qigong movements. Then there's performance methods, and performance, as you know, is like Juru's forms, combos or performance. It's just sequencing of movements. Jab, cross, hook is a performance method. It's still sequencing information in a way to make the body move in a non-intellectual way, right? And then, of course, there's the fighting methods. So these 3 components of schools, if they're missing one of these components, it's just like a non-complete martial arts. The fighting methods is the expression of the performance and the conditioning with martial intent and self-defense. Yeah, totally different. So without that, it's kind of empty, and it's fine, becomes more seni and artistic. So how do you train martial intent without, going like, super, without saying a martial arts system, super over the top, right? So there's focusing, a lot of training outdoors with Chechef. For one of the tests, we had to sleep outdoors in the jungle, right? And he's generally saying stuff to me which is high level and in its simplicity has deepness. Versus he's not giving you an A through Z list. Do this, do this, do this. So some people left to their own, when you're sleeping in the jungle, you're like, what's going on? They've never camped. They're from the cities, Even people from Jakarta, they're Indonesian. They're like, whoa.
Mate, there's some big ass spiders and snakes out in those places, Yeah. You gotta be careful.
Yeah, dude. I grew up in the islands, and even though the beach is like 20, 15 minutes away, I have friends who never knew how to swim. It's just like, that's life sometimes. Yeah, so that internal component is about like breathing, slowing your heart down, clearing your mind. I think a lot of it is naturally embedded in their culture, which have always been spiritual. They've been Hindu, Buddhist, and they're Islamic now. There's synchronistic Islamic styles like Hewajen and different stuff, as you know. But the central component is be a good person and connect to your heart and connect to the universe, your creator. Yeah. The golden rule, do unto others what you would have done to you. Really simple. So the other stuff he would do would be inversions, which in yoga theory or biological sciences, the blood flow and all that stuff is really crucial. So he would be doing like handstands, headstands, splits upside down, which is, like, whoa, I was only exposed to that through my yoga training. And so I know the benefit of it and discipline your mind. And Kang Cecep's really naturally, because of his upbringing, super focused, but can relax and be a background character. He doesn't always have to be the main star of the movie. Sure. Yeah. When it's on, he's direct, focused, and you can feel the presence. And then, you chill, and he's like, oh, this guy's wearing a fanny pack like me, and he sandals on. And he wants to take pictures of the, Texas bull. Yeah. Which is great, So then one of the things in the camp was good was meeting the Bangalipur guys, the white crane guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Abaziz, the Chikawan guys do a lot of sticky hands or push hands. I love that. It's a way of tactile training, energy, and sensitivity. Yeah, so... And
interestingly, in Abba Aziz's style, this is where the Karimadi and Sabandar comes in through his concept of... He really put it well. I mean, I had when I first met him back in, I think it was 2012, 2013, and I've got it on the channel, kind of like the interview, and we had it sort of translated.
It's a great interview.
And what was really interesting to me, because at that time I didn't know what he was talking about. I just said to Ed, I said, look, just let it run. And at some point we'll get it translated. 10 years later it took me to get it translated to find someone who could do it. But to the point of a defense, attack, and kind of maintaining it was a really great analogy of kind of like soccer. So you have the defenders, you have the midfielders that pass it, and then you have the attackers that finishing. And that was just kind of like a great analogy that kind of helped me to understand those three in a different kind of context. He put it quite well.
Yeah, it's great because we have that in Panglipur. So Chechef's like, hey, you think I'm good? Well, go to my teacher who taught me some of this. That's here. I want you to experience this. And thank God I had already been doing yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, Qigong, energy stuff, because to me and my perception, dude, Abaziz was like, whoa. He would barely touch me like this, I could feel the wave sending me to the corner, and I'm going compliant, right? Trust me. But I would boom, and I would roll to the corner, and he would smile and pull me by my ear, and my whole body would go there. I could feel the circle. I was like, oh, and it's like Aikido, people say, or Tai Chi, is that idea of the circle, and he would constantly redirect me, and he broke down the Isi and Kosong, and my Indonesian's not good, but like the emptying and filling. And I was like, Tai Chi, yin yang. One is empty, one is filling. This emptying and filling principle. So I got to touch hands with him. I touched hands with all his senior students. At the end of the night, as you know, Indonesians, they'll take a dinner break, but they'll stay up till like 3 a.m. drinking coffee, and some of them are smoking. And I got to play with all his students in a non-scripted, non-workshop way.
Yeah, and that there, Kai, is a great illustration of why I believe, and I know you share the same sentiments, why it benefits people to go, in this instance, to Indonesia to learn. It's not just saying we can bring the teacher over and we can learn from him, yes, but you're getting obviously maybe like the formal structural class, but then you're getting hours afterwards of discussion, of immersion, of just that time with students and that is also where you're learning so much and just getting from different students who are often very high level themselves,
Yeah, thank you. And it's like a library. So I think by touching hands, push hand drills, or even freestyle sparring with people, there's this, interaction where skill, knowledge that's verbal, it's non-intellectual, it can still be absorbed. And a lot of people, because we're Westerners, we like the scripted, A through Z, 1, 2, 3, 4, tell me the script. So under stress, I'm going to reply like the script. But whatever goes the way you think when stress is applied to it. I mean...
Yeah, exactly. Kai, what do you feel within the US, a mega huge country, over 300 million people? Woo-hoo. What's the state of Silat overall? Like, for example, in the United States, generally,
locally,
to your mindset.
Yeah, locally, so my researching has gone through, of course, talking to people on the internet, right? So I'm not like the purveyor of all knowledge, but like the heyday was around the 90s, late 2000, where Herman Sawanda, the Thor's brothers, and that really was a big movement. And then it kind of went underground. And some of the JKD guys through Mafalinda and Mahapaja Arts kept it alive too, which is like a hybrid modern Silat system, which is still great in my opinion. And then it became more like, I do this style. And it was only until, Kang Wona, Malik you had on, and Richard hosted that first USA Penchak Silat Federation Festival Workshop Series. And they brought me, Kang Cecep, and all these other teachers locally, and it was like non-competitive. They're just like, hey, these people do these Silat styles, and they brought us all together to teach a multi-day workshop. And that was like one of the best experiences I've ever had in martial arts in general, and with Silat community, because they're kind of cliquish, and it's like, some people are all for one, and I like to be, one for all. Different idea of teaching and moving. So the East Coast guys, which are the three guys I just mentioned, really fosters a good network, and I was able to meet like some OG Harimau Mandamuda guys like Steve Braun, Richard, Haynes, some of his students, and they openly played with me and were able to non-verbally move around without blasting each other, but like, I'm stabbing, I'm trying to kick you, I'm trying to sweep you without, dominating each other. As you know, some dudes are just, I know they're too formal. They don't, of course, there's crazy people in Silat that you have to watch out for. So maybe they're really guarded, but some people won't play the touch hands game. I'll go to these like events and be like, oh, let's play. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's just like freestyle, Or in Tai Chi, they do the touch hands. Like we both put our hands and they're like, oh, because once I touch, I know, But if I don't touch, it's like still my perception of whether I'm right or wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the East Coast guys are really good, and then they recently had their monumental festival earlier this year in the Virginia, D.C., Maryland area, where they combined the Silat tournament, Sports Silat, and the festival workshop series. Yeah, for this 2-day extravaganza event. So that was a great. I think these guys are like really pioneers of it. They're helping bring people together locally in Texas. I work with Siho James Smith. He does some Silat, some Kempo, FMA as well. And we're trying to do like similar, smaller events. And there's Doc Doherty in Dallas. I'm always like texting him or sending him messages because he is a wealth of information and he's pretty neutral. And then a couple of years we do for Austin, we do Rooted in Resistance, and it's African and Southeast Asian martial arts. And it's a gathering, just like the East Coast guys, where they bring in all these different teachers. Like I was there teaching Silat. There's another guy teaching Silat. There were some great Filipino martial artist guys like Jay Jasper. And then the guy hosting all the things, Damon Sith, is like this African martial artist. And he really is really inclusive. And he created an environment for us all to come together and share, arts that aren't so popular compared to like Japanese or Chinese arts.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's more.
I don't even remember. There used to be a guy. He sadly passed away a few years ago. His name was Kalinde Iye.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he had a wealth of African martial art. He came to the UK, and some of the stuff that he showed, I can't remember the names of his stuff now, but some of those like tribal African arts that he knew were like, wow, they were like brutal, man. They were brutal, Yeah,
I like that crossover. It's good to see.
Yeah, but so it's, you could say that it's alive and kicking the Silat scene, but we know anyway that in terms of kind of participation relative, even maybe to something like FMA, Silat overall, it's still a lot smaller. Why do you think that is? What do you think the connotations with Silat? I guess, and I've said this many times, like sometimes people who don't really understand what they're looking at say, oh, how can that be used combatively? Because maybe all they're seeing is like demonstration and drills and things like that. But what do you think could like be improved to maybe, help people be more interested in Silat in the US, for example?
Yeah, I mean, outside of like these hybrid modernized programs or development, I think the art inherently protects itself from the McGurus and the McDojos of Silat, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just embedded into art. I noticed a tendency by like senior martial artists to do, whether it was karate, kempo, or kung fu, when they got to their 10th degree black belt, their teacher's like, okay, now I'll go learn Silat and Tai Chi. So it became in America like, oh, this is this unicorn of martial arts that's so deadly, you have to wait until blah, 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 blah. You've accumulated your 10 black belts, and now you can be like, I'm a master of Silat. But 10 black belts doesn't mean anything. If you cook French cuisine, it doesn't mean you can cook Italian cuisine. But, some people have like Dunning-Kruger effect. They're like, no, I can cook French food. I can cook anything. It's like, well, good luck with that one. So, yeah. Yeah. So, I get sidetracked about that. The different schools try to join together. You were talking about the way we work together, right? Oh, it's inherently protected.
And how it can be more popular to the general part, how there can be more participation maybe within Silat, because as I've said, there is there are a lot of cliques. It is a lot of like people following maybe a certain type of one of their teachers and stuff, and I understand that it is quite tribal. But overall, we have not me. It's just generally speaking, there's a concept called Silat Urami.
Yes.
Silat Urami is Silat brotherhood.
Yes.
And it's the idea of no matter if we're doing Bangalipur, Chimande, Harimau, Mande Muda, Serra, any other thing, actually we're all brothers and sisters within Silat under a wider umbrella, so that when people come together, rather than kind of like people saying mine's the real stuff or this or that, it's like people are sharing and just chilling together and stuff. That's the idea of Silat Urahmi, but we don't see that too often. It's unfortunate. Do you think there's a way of maybe bridging that, or do you think ultimately people are just going to stay in their lane and that's the way it goes?
Yeah, so I think we need more gatherings like the East Coast guys, Kalwana, Richard, and Malik doing, or like Damon Sith in Austin with the Root and Resistance. gatherings are low key, inclusive, to be more about community, sharing, right?
Yeah.
Outside of that, of course, what I've seen other people do is push the sports Silat, because just like Taekwondo and karate, once they got into the Olympics, it blew up. So then a lot of people took the model that we need to do more sports Silat because of the kids programs, and we need to push it to get into the Olympics. Because once it gets into the Olympics, we'll be world famous, and that's a viable pathway as well for the more modern sporty stuff as well. Outside of those two avenues, more gatherings, getting together. A lot of Silat people aren't, we don't do a lot of video promotional stuff, and I think that's fine. There's always going to be the superficial glam Silat popular stuff, which is great, and there's always going to be like the garage training, backyard training Silat teacher that you don't even know is a Silat teacher, because they're not selling it, right?
A lot of those just under the radar. I mean, I love under the radar teachers. We've discussed this. And
and I get it, because one's more of the kids. They're training a bunch of kids. They have to promote it and do belts now, and do structure to make the people stay along and go to a certain way.
And especially if you're a full-time martial artist, in terms of that's your full livelihood and stuff like that, then kids programs are really kind of a really important kind of aspect of drawing in kind of finances for that to live. But Kai, tell me, as we sort of slowly begin to kind of wrap up, what's your next? Have you got any plans to go to Indonesia again? What's your next plan and project, just to get over there and continue your own studies within Silat?
Yeah, so some of my ninja plans that I don't tell people would be going back to Indonesia and training with Kang Cecep in Garut, of course, to update my feeling, knowledge, science, to check on him, and would then go to West Sumatra eventually to train with Paksayofian. Also, he's invited me to live with him. I still have that idea of continuing it. It's not like a closure, but it's like a beginning. I've never been to West Sumatra, right? And we're saying about the vibe.
You'd love it.
Yeah, it's the vibe.
Yeah, it's really different.
Yeah, and then hopefully we're trying to bring some teachers down to Houston next year. And one of the great guys I met during the 2018 camp was Kang Ryan Gray, who's an Inosanto instructor in both the Filipino martial arts and their Mafolindo Silat system. And he's in California, and he trained with Panglipur with Chechef. So he's trying to be more active too, and we want to do like bring teachers that we resonate with into these areas for people to share with,
But this is to that point of you embody the idea of Silat Urahmi, because you've done it through so many of the workshops, and I think it's such a great thing to see. Not all will do that, very much this is our little bit, this is how we do it, but you're open to having different teachers coming in, and I think there's a great insight into, exchanging ideas and techniques and knowledge and just brotherhood as well.
It's all about the brotherhood. I'm lucky I don't do this for money. As you know, if you're not running a storefront school, you're not making money off this, right? I teach at Rice University. I teach yoga, Tai Chi, and I teach Silat. And that's great, because at least I have every semester a way of breaking down information within 3 months. And some kids are really gung-ho, so they'll come back for another semester. But I get to teach the curriculum in a way that makes them see it. And then privately, I have my own students who are more intermediate martial artists. And then I teach one public class through Houston Martial Arts Academy with my brother Jason Evans to help promote Southeast Asian martial arts as well. So people can come join that and try it out. I'm always outsourcing people to other teachers like Doc Doherty. Oh, you're in Dallas? You should go train with Doc. Oh, you're in Florida? You should go train with Chris Durbon. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know different people that might not do my style, but if you want, they're next to you, you should go train with them in a way.
It's always a little bit different when your country is actually like a freaking continent, It's not like, it's an hour's drive away. We're talking like plane ride. So sometimes just geographically, you have to see who's in a certain area as well, because the distances are like mega.
Yeah, and one of my secret, ninja plans is to write a book or like a training manual with illustrations and just general concepts of how to move. And then I want to do I did a Patreon online program, but I want to do a really polished, like I was telling you before, online program, and it's like this introduction to West Javanese, West Sumatran arts in a basic way. Yeah, cool. I like breaking complex things down, or things I get into the smallest components, you know?
Yeah.
And the goal is to do the program, read the book, and then go to Indonesia. Go train with these guys. At least you have a base. You've done squats before. You're not going to be running out of breath or all red-faced because, you know, they try to make you go up and down. It's like, yeah, you're not going to be successful too long. In camp, I saw people get, like, pass out, unfortunately, because they weren't drinking. They weren't in shape. The heat, you know, they're on medications probably, Johnny. I have no idea, you know, but if they're not prepared, it's like Silat is like, well, it's not hard in the way that's hard to learn. It's hard in a way that's hard to do if you're not strong or flexible
and
or smart.
And especially if you're there. People don't realize that weird kind of heat and humidity and everything as well can just sap life out of you so very quickly.
Well, and like you were saying earlier, you know, there's teachers who, like, I teach Panglipur from Chechef, and they just went to a couple of workshops, right? And then on their website, they put a teacher directly under Chechef, but it's like they just went to workshops, right?
That's completely different.
Yeah. At best, there's the tourist teachers who go at least, right? Granted, I give them it. They go to the place for a week or two, and they learn techniques and movements, and then boom, they have to go. They're working. They don't have time, right? I was a teacher, so I chose paid summers off. So I was fortunate to go summers where I'm just hanging out with them now, and you're hot, you're drinking, you're eating their food, and you're training when they're training. You're sleeping when they're sleeping, you know?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
It's a different level of transference and little details that you're getting that people are not going to be getting just within formal kind of training settings. There's so much more that goes on outside of kind of like the padepokan, you know, or the training area. There's so much just in normal conversation over coffee.
Yeah, exactly. It should be like over coffee always, and less informants. And that's like we use the term Kang or Ka. It's like this idea of familial terms. Oh, that's a brother who he knows what he's doing. You should go learn from Kang or Mang or Mas if they're your equal, you know?
Absolutely.
Versus, of course, we know in Indonesian culture, since some of the words are based off Sanskrit, the word guru is used. And guru just means teacher, like a school teacher. But guru also in Hindu Indian cultures has a connotation of being spiritual. As you know, because if you look at the Sanskrit word for it, it's one who unites light and darkness. But if you don't know language, you know, you might just get a little bit light and a little bit dark, you know?
That's right.
So
I mean, that's a big, it's a big thing, isn't it? Really, one who unifies or one who separates the light from darkness. I mean, that's a hell of a responsibility.
It is, dude.
Right?
So we don't use that term. We use familial terms, and especially in the West. Somehow, you know, Chechef and the Sundanese people knew that the Westerners, when they heard guru, they're like, oh, guru. Yeah. And they're not going to tell you don't call them guru if they don't know you, right? They're polite.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? A lot of the titles, the designated titles that, you know, teachers that are based in the West used. I know, and I'm sure you've heard it as well. A lot of the local Indonesian teachers, they kind of laugh at it. It's kind of funny because for that very reason, you know. You know, an older person, a bapak, or an even older, an aki, or, you know, a mang, like an uncle level, or a brother level, like a kang, etc. Certainly in West Java, and then you know, Central Java has its own, and Sumatra has its own as well. And this and that, and it goes on. But there's never really kind of like Pendeka or this or that one. It just not really to their own mind, you know. So
and that's how you know if you never go to the culture, you'll never experience that and be like, they don't say it. And since they're super polite, most of them, and humble, you know, Kang Cecep would never tell you, don't call me that if he didn't know you. He's not going to correct you. He's going to be polite. He's like, I don't know you. Oh, call me guru. Once he gets to know you, he's like, Kai, let me tell you, we don't use this word. I'm just telling you directly behind the scenes. And if someone calls you it, we don't get upset and like, oh my God, don't call me that. But eventually we tell them like, oh, we don't use that term in this system. Other systems do, which is fine, right? But in Panglipur, we really don't use that term as much. At least the way I was taught by Kang Cecep. as you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. How can people get hold of you that maybe are going to watch this podcast and don't know who you are and interested maybe in learning? You know, what's the best method to get hold of you?
Oh yeah, I usually vet people by not responding to emails, so the emails would be the best way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not responding to them.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I do as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
No, yeah, but email.
And,
You can share my email with them.
I'll share an email. I'll put some contact details in there. Any social media as well that I can put in.
Yeah, I'll give you the Houston Martial Arts social media and my own personal pesky lot. I just show movement and drills and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can send you that stuff so you can follow up with it for sure.
Kai, anything you wanna add before we just close it off? Any thought? Anything we haven't covered or so? I know it's one of these things that we could just jam and keep talking.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean I think we covered most of it. The Panglipur stuff I really resonate with it because it's got everything: the weapons, it's got self-defense. You want performance, It's got that for you. And I like the idea to reinforce that the different branches, like, oh, you should go learn there. This style does it this way. So it's non-competitive, It's still also open for people to express themselves and what they really want to train. Is a cool thing, So I think we did that pretty well, Johnny.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Listen, I really appreciate your time. We did manage to get it going. We had a couple of delays and stuff like that. We've got a few hours time difference between us, but we got to take a trip to Indonesia ourselves.
Dude, that's next for sure, man. Yeah.
To West Sumatra, we've got some serious off the grid teachers as well that you just
I missed out on that select camp you guys had. I was talking to Aaron Bonilla, and Aaron told me that's where he met you. Great guy. Yeah, great guy. But so next for sure.
Kang Kai, thank you, sir, for your time, and we'll no doubt be catching up again offline.
All right, cool, man.
But thanks everybody for watching as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Johnny. I'll see you guys soon.
Take care. Thanks, sir. Cheers, guys.